Hey everyone, today we're going to be troubleshooting the TravelScoot. So if you have an issue with the scooter, whether it's not working and you don't know what to do, this is the video for you. We're going to be looking first at the battery and the charger, and then we're going to move on to common steps that we can take in troubleshooting the electronics of the scooter. So first, what we're going to need, if we're going to start with the battery, is you need a multimeter like this one. Pretty much anyone will work. If you don't have a multimeter, that's fine. You can take your battery to any battery store. They should be able to test it for free. What we're looking for in order for this to work, this is a 24 volt system, the scooter is, but you'll notice that the battery is like a 25.2 volt. And so that's the bare minimum that we need to get for the scooter to work on this battery. Now, 25.2 would be the very low end. I wouldn't want that in a battery. Brand new, the batteries are 29.2. So what we're going to do is we're going to, first of all, plug in our charger, because we'll start with the charger. When we do, you'll see 3 flashing lights, and then you'll see a solid red light. This solid red light just means that we have a good power source in the wall. All right, so I'm going to show you that again. We have no red light. Once we plug it in, 3 quick flashes of green, and then we've got a solid red. This solid red means that we have power in the wall, okay? Now when we plug it into the battery, if it's a good battery, you'll see a solid red. All right. If you see any flashing of any kind, whether it's a flashing red or a flashing green, that's a bad thing. There's something either wrong with your charger or your battery, and when we check the battery with the multimeter, we'll determine if it's wrong with the battery. Now, if you see, let's say we have 30 seconds go by and you get a solid green, and you know that it's not fully charged, that means that there's probably something wrong with either the charger or the battery again. So at least you know that you can send in the battery or the charger to us, and we can test that here in the shop for you. All right, so let me unplug that. Put that to the side, and now we're going to move over to the multimeter. Again, if you don't have one of these, just take it to any battery store and they'll test it for free. Now we're looking at DC, all right, which on this one is to the left, and we're going to the 200 mark. Okay, and you'll notice that if we put it on the other 200 mark, nothing's really going to happen. So you want to take your red line and put it to the metal contact here. And same thing with the black on the contact. All right, and what are we seeing? We're seeing 28.8. Now again, I said that if it's fully charged and brand new, it's going to look at about 29.2, sometimes you'll see 29.3. This battery is quite a bit older, but 28.8, we know for sure that it's probably close to fully charged if this one is, let's say, 4 years old or so. So the battery looks pretty good. You'll notice that if I put it on the wrong 200, if we do this again, okay, it's not going to show anything because it's not the right dial. All right, so in some cases, you'll see that the multimeter is kind of ramping up. It'll start from the low voltage, let's say around 6, and then it'll go up to 13 and then go back down again. That's obviously really bad. We don't want that. And so, at least in this case, we know that there's nothing wrong with the battery. So let's move on. All right, so we're gonna start with just the basics. This is something that you can do, and you don't need any spare parts or anything else. Looking at this scooter, I'm glad we have it because we've got this little box on the front. Anytime you put something like this on your scooter, whether it's a basket, not sold by us, and it's interfering with any of the wiring, you really need to watch out for it. In this case, I already know that it's not the throttle or the on-off, it is the controller. But if there's any type of interference, you just really want to watch out for that because you can damage the wires with this. So in this case, for what we're doing, I don't technically need to move it, but I would. If you're doing this, if you have anything in front of the wiring, we got to get it out of the way. So in this case, this is fine. So let's just start with this. We'll actually start with the controller here. What we're looking for is one of the signs being that if you turn the wheel, you're going to feel a cog or like a jutting. Okay, you're going to have resistance here. That's fine. But if you are experiencing that, what you want to do is take off. You can rip this off, cut the tie wraps, which I've already done, and then disconnect it. And then if it's smooth, then we know that that's a good sign. It's the controller. Another thing you can do is test for the seal. Sometimes, you know, over let's say you're doing a lot of off-roading or something like that, then this may get loose, which we're just gonna undo this. You'll notice that there are two arrows. This one has a white arrow here. And then we have another arrow. You want to match those up. Okay, that's the pin alignment. Sorry, we try to do things for the video and it just sometimes doesn't work out. All right, so that's in and it's tight, but it's still not working. All right, so next what we're going to do when we're working with the throttle and the on-off, lower the steering column because this frees up the wiring. Now, with the battery plugged in, and the scooter on, okay, if you see lights like this, great. A lot of the times, if it's going to be the throttle or the on-off, you won't see any lights at all. In this case, we have some lights. We're going to twist the throttle. Nothing's happening, okay? So, oh, the lights just went off. They went off. I felt some type of movement here. Again, that's a really good sign that it's the controller. If somebody pushes you or you give yourself a little nudge and it works, that's when we know it's the controller. But let's just say that didn't happen and we're not seeing any lights here at all. What we want to do is we want to start with the easy areas, you know, right here. If you had the scooter on and you were moving the wire here, let's say that you can see the throttle lights turn on and off. Okay, we know it's the throttle. Okay, if you don't get that, go to the left side here, wiggle them around. I would think that that would be the case because we've got this strap that's just pulling on this wire, which isn't good. So I'm gonna undo that, get that out of the way. Now I have access to my on-off. And I'm just looking for lights to show up. If you can find an area in these wires where the lights turn on and off, if you move here, oh, the lights turn on. Okay, it's the on-off assembly, pretty easy. We can also just cut this one wire down below and pull out your connections. Also, if you move the connections down here, and if you see them turn on, okay, it's gonna be one of these. At least we can rule out the controller. What I would normally do, and I've done a video on this before, but you would clip the wires here. Making sure you don't cut any wires. You want to clip the tie wraps. The tie wraps, not the wires. And then separate the wiring. And you're doing the same thing. You're going to start from the top and you're just working your way down, just looking at the lights here. There's no lights at all. And again, I have a video and I'll try to put it in this one where it shows me doing this, where I find that there's an area in, I can't remember if it was the throttle or the on-off, but it was about right here, where if I moved it one way, it would turn on. If I moved it another way, it would turn off. That's how you know, and you can test to see if it's a throttle or an on-off. All right. Now what we're going to do, let's say that none of this worked at all. Then what your next step would have to be, since you don't have parts, is you need to get parts, which would consist of the electronics package. The electronics package consists of the throttle, the on-off, and the controller. They come with tie wraps. They come with a replacement Velcro strap right here, because you'll be removing the Velcro strap on the battery tray. And they come with the grips. Sometimes if you do have to remove the throttle or on-off, they can be difficult. If you don't have compressed air, then we have the grips. You can just cut them off and you're okay. You got a spare. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use our spare parts and we're going to test them before we install anything. It's really important, and it can save you a lot of time by just testing the part first before getting everything. And let's say you're convinced it's the throttle, so you do everything and you install the throttle. Well, then it's not the throttle, and well, now you've got to go through the controller and the on-off. So it's really important that we just test everything first, and then we install whatever needs to be replaced. In this case, it's definitely the controller, and so I'll be getting another housing for it and then installing the controller. And again, all of our installation videos we'll have here in the link below, and if you're on our troubleshooting guide, we'll have it in the guide. All right, so for part 2 of this, what we're doing is we're looking at the electronics. We have, of course, the controller, the throttle, and the on-off. If you want to skip all of this, you can just go onto our website and get what's called the electronics package. That consists of the controller, throttle, and on-off. And that way it's really easy. You just get all the parts. You're not installing anything, you're just testing the parts on the scooter, which we're going to do here today. But that way, let's say it's not the controller, it's the throttle that's not working. That way you can then replace the throttle, and you can send back your on-off assembly and your controller for a full refund. So let's get into this. I'm going to start by removing the caddy. And pulling it out of the way. A lot of people think that you need to remove the end cap like this gentleman did. You don't want to do that. The end cap doesn't come off. It will break it. So we always want to work it from behind here. And so the only thing we need to do is cut this tie wrap most of the time. And what that will do is that'll give you access behind the front wheel to where everything plugs into. So we've got the 2 connections for the controller side, and then your throttle connects behind here, and then your throttle or your on-off separately. Now it looks like these are on very tightly, and we can't manipulate the wires very easily. So what I would recommend is go to any Walmart, or you can order these on Amazon or a hardware store, but you get some tie wraps. Any tie wraps will do. They should be at least, I would say, 6 to 8 inches for these. And I'm just going to make this easy for myself and cut all of these. We've got 2 more down here. Make sure that you don't cut the wires. You want to go in between the wiring. So I'm going to take that off. Just like that. Now I can get really easy access to manipulate these wires. Okay, so I've got my throttle and the on-off. Okay, so I'm just going to push this down a little bit more. You want to be careful not to push too hard on any one of these, because you don't want to yank the wiring out of the housing here. Okay, you can also lower this down to make it a little bit easier. This gives you more room to work with. And now you can see when we pull this out, everything is very easy. So which one is the throttle and which one is the on-off? The thicker one, the wider, is the on-off, and the thinner is the throttle. All right, so this is the on-off connection. And so I'm taking my electronics package that I just got in the mail. I'm going to open up the on-off. I have the battery plugged in right now. And we can see that obviously nothing's working because we have this unplugged, but let me just plug that in. Generally, when you're plugging things in here, you want to have the battery unplugged. So unplug the battery, disconnect it whenever you're plugging things in or unplugging them. Okay, so that's plugged in. Now I'm going to plug this in. And then, okay, we see that we're getting lights. Okay, now then when I went to engage the throttle, the lights went out. So let's try this again. We're going to turn that off. Nothing when I turned it on. Let's try unplugging the battery again. Plugging it in. All right, we got lights, but when I turned the throttle, okay, I felt something here. I felt the wheel move, but nothing happened. So again, it's another sign that it's probably the controller. But let's say you're not getting that. We're going to disconnect the on-off, plug in the on-off, and then you have to remember to turn it on from here. Again, nothing's happening, no lights, so we know it's probably not the on-off. I'm going to unplug battery, disconnect the on-off, plug it back in. You can see that this is the easy part because I'm not having to install the on-off and then just realize, oh my gosh, it wasn't the on-off. Okay, now I'm going to go with the throttle. Whenever we send you an electronics package, they do come with new grips, just in case you need to have those grips. And they also come with about, I don't know, 6 to 10 tie wraps. And then if you're a escape user, you'll get this piece of Velcro because we're going to replace the battery tray Velcro here. The battery goes on. All right, so we plugged in the battery. We plugged in the throttle now. You might want to turn this on and be tempted to look here, okay? But what we're doing is we're swapping out the throttle. So now we see that we have lights. That's something that I wouldn't expect. So let me try turning. Nothing, okay. So we're not getting anything even though we're seeing lights. So it's still not the throttle. All right, so I've got the throttle and on-off disconnected from the old controller, and we're going to grab a new controller and see if that's it. Again, a really good sign to know if it's the controller is if you go to engage the throttle, you feel this motor moving slightly, and then it just stops. Generally, that is the cause of a bad controller. Another thing is if we move this by hand, it'll be really kind of jutty. I don't know if that's the right word or not, but it doesn't move smoothly. You're gonna have resistance on this motor because it's a motor, but you shouldn't feel cogs, like where you're feeling as if you're moving cogs around in here. So again, if you feel that, here's the next step. For this, we're gonna have the battery unplugged. We will have to cut 2 more tie wraps, which you can only access underneath the Velcro here. All right. If you need to grab some pliers, you can. I'm going to move this out of the way because we have a replacement strip of Velcro. And then I'm going to cut here and cut here. We talked about moving this wheel. If you're feeling that juttingness, the cog type feel, once you unplug the controller from the motor, it should be smooth. Now, it's not a for sure thing, but it is one of those signs. I'm gonna come over to this other side because it's easier doing it from the left side here. Now, if you've ever opened up a bag of chips, and you did it the wrong way, or cereal, and you just kind of pull it apart this way, everything explodes. We don't want to do that with the controller. It's just difficult, and you can hit yourself on the scooter and get yourself hurt. So just like with a bag of chips, you have that technique where you can kind of open it from here. That's what we're going to do. I like to put my left thumb on my right thumb, and the brake is right here. This is where it's connected. There should be a tight seal. All right, so I'm just gonna grab and put my fingers together here and then put my thumb and then just push against it. It should come off fairly easy and you're not gonna hurt yourself. All right, so in some cases, if you were feeling a cog type feel, once you unplug it with the battery off, this should be smooth, okay? For us, it didn't make a difference. We weren't having that symptom. So now I'm gonna grab the controller, come along this other side, just so Becky can get a better view. You'll notice that there is an arrow, a black arrow on one of the parts of where the controller plugs into the battery. And on the motor side, you'll see either a black or a white arrow. You want to make sure that those are aligned because this is for the pin alignment. You'll notice we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is a 9-pin connector. Okay, so they have to be aligned, otherwise they can get damaged. Not too difficult, just make sure they're aligned. Push together fairly tight. You want to create a good seal. And then from here, we're not installing it, we're just testing it. Plug in the wider connection, which is the on-off, and the thinner connection, which is the throttle. Now, let's plug in the battery. Doesn't have to be on the battery tray. We just want to make sure that the red wire matches up with the red wire on here. Now, we'll turn it on. We're getting all of our lights. I'm going to tip the left side so it doesn't take off on me. And there we go. The scooter is working forwards. We need to make sure it goes backwards. And that was it. So we are looking at a controller. What we'll do here is we'll look at the installation videos for the controller. If it's the throttle or on-off, look at those videos. What you would like to have is probably a controller go out, mainly because it's easier to install, because you've got 2 screws that go into the housing here, and then you just plug it into the back. Not much to do. If you have a throttle or on-off, then what you're having to do is take off the grips, and these are already cut, but basically you're gonna remove the hardware here and feed in the wire from the back. So there's a little bit more involved there, but we do have all of these videos on our website. We'll have links in this content below. And if you have any questions, we're here for you. If you need help with this process, I think we're the only company out there that will do a Zoom meeting or a FaceTime call with you to walk you through the process. If you have any questions at all, we're here for you. So don't hesitate to reach out to us, give us a call, shoot us an email, and we'll get this taken care of for you. If you have any questions, let us know, and we'll see you next time.